April 28th, 1945. The war in Europe has just 10 days left. In the chaos of collapsing Nazi Germany, a Tiger II tank commander fights his final battle near the small Czechoslovakian village of Wostitz. His name is Kurt Knispel. By this moment, he has destroyed more enemy tanks than any soldier in history. 168 confirmed kills, possibly as many as 195. Yet within hours, he will be dead. And then, for nearly 70 years, he will simply disappear. This is not the story of a celebrated hero showered with medals and honors. This is the story of history's deadliest tank ace, a man who fought from the gates of Moscow to the ruins of Budapest, who could hit a moving tank at 2,000 meters, who stood up to Nazi officers and paid the price. A man so skilled that only his combat record saved him from military prison. A man whose final resting place would become one of World War II's most haunting mysteries. September 20th, 1921. Kurt Knispel is born in Salisfeld today, called Salisov, a tiny settlement near Zuckmantel in the Sudetenland region of Czechoslovakia. He grows up among the Sudeten Germans, an ethnic minority that has lived in these mountains for centuries. His childhood in nearby Niklasdorf is unremarkable. His father works on a farm. Young Kurt attends the local school, plays in the hills, dreams of adventure far beyond these quiet valleys. But the world around him is changing. When Adolf Hitler annexes the Sudetenland in 1938, Kurt Knispel suddenly finds himself a citizen of the Third Reich. He's 17 years old. By 1940, Knispel has completed an apprenticeship at an automobile factory. He spends his days among engines and machinery, boring, repetitive work that doesn't satisfy his restless spirit. He wants more. He wants adventure. So in April 1940, Kurt Knispel volunteers for the Wehrmacht. He applies to join the armored branch, the Panzer forces that are making headlines across Europe. The Panzer Replacement Training Battalion at Sagan in Lower Silesia becomes Knispel's new world. Here, at 19 years old, he undergoes basic infantry training. He learns to march, to salute, to handle the Kar 98 rifle, the P8 pistol, the MG34 machine gun. But this isn't what he signed up for. He wants tanks. His persistence pays off. By October 1940, Knispel transfers to the 3rd Company of the 29th Panzer Regiment, 12th Panzer Division. Now he's training on the Panzer I, Panzer II, and Panzer IV. He learns to be a loader, then a gunner. And it's here, at the training grounds in Putlos, that his instructors notice something extraordinary. Kurt Knispel has a gift. He possesses what veterans would later describe as total three-dimensional vision, an almost supernatural ability to judge distance, speed, and trajectory. His reflexes are extraordinary. When other gunners struggle to hit stationary targets, Knispel hits moving ones. When others can't estimate range, Knispel calculates it instinctively. His superiors take notice. This young man from the Sudetenland might be something special. But in June 1941, there's no more time for training. Hitler launches Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union, and Kurt Knispel is about to enter the largest, most brutal conflict in human history. June 22nd, 1941. 3 million German soldiers pour across the Soviet border. Among them is 20-year-old Gefreiter Kurt Knispel, serving as a gunner in a Panzer IV under Lieutenant Hellmann, part of Panzer Group III, commanded by General Adolf Friedrich Kunzen. The German advance is devastating. The Soviet forces, caught unprepared by Stalin's refusal to believe Hitler would attack, collapse in confusion. Entire armies are encircled. Thousands of tanks are destroyed or abandoned. The road to Moscow seems open, but for the men in the tanks, it's not a parade. It's hell. Inside a Panzer IV, the temperature can reach 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The noise is deafening, the roar of the engine, the screech of treads, the percussion of the main gun firing. The air is thick with cordite smoke and exhaust fumes. As a gunner, Knispel must peer through his sight, identify targets through the dust and chaos of battle, calculate range and lead time, and fire all while Soviet shells are slamming into his tank's armor. Each impact, like being inside a bell that someone is striking with a sledgehammer. And Knispel excels at it. From Yarzevo to the gates of Stalingrad, from the Leningrad-Tikhvin area to the Caucasus under Field Marshal Eberhard von Mackensen, Kurt Knispel sees action across the entire Eastern Front. Tank battle after tank battle, ambush after ambush. The obsolete Soviet T-26 seconds and BT-7 seconds stand little chance against the well-trained German crews. But the T-34 is different. A revolutionary design with sloped armor, a powerful 76mm gun, and superior mobility. The T-34 demands respect. Knispel shows no fear. When a T-34 appears in his sights, he fires. When Soviet anti-tank guns open up, he targets them. His kill count begins to climb. By November 1942, he's earned the Iron Cross Second Class and the Wound Badge in black. A photograph from this period shows a young, serious face, no propaganda smile, just the 1,000-yard stare of a man who has seen too much. By the end of 1942, Kurt Knispel has 12 confirmed tank kills. Impressive, but not extraordinary. Many German gunners have similar tallies, but everything is about to change. Because in January 1943, Knispel returns to Putlos for training on Germany's newest weapon, the Tiger I. The Panzerkampfwagen 6 Tiger I is a monster. Weighing 54 tons, armed with the legendary 88mm gun, protected by armor up to 100mm thick, the Tiger is designed for one purpose: to kill enemy tanks at ranges they cannot return fire. In the right hands, a single Tiger can hold off an entire Soviet tank brigade. Kurt Knispel's hands are exactly right. In February 1943, Knispel's training group is designated the 1st Company of the 503rd Heavy Panzer Battalion. Heavy is Wehrmacht code for Tiger Formation's elite units attached to critical sectors of the front. These aren't men who guard supply depots or patrol quiet sectors. These are the firefighters, rushed to wherever the situation is most desperate. And in the summer of 1943, nowhere is more desperate than Kursk. Operation Citadel, Hitler's attempt to regain the initiative on the Eastern Front by cutting off the massive Soviet salient around Kursk. The Germans assemble the largest concentration of armored forces ever seen: Panthers, Tigers, Ferdinands. Supported by hundreds of Stukas and thousands of infantry. Facing them, Soviet defensive lines of extraordinary depth, studded with anti-tank guns, minefields, and dug-in T-34 seconds. And behind those lines, Soviet strategic reserves numbering in the thousands of tanks waiting to counterattack. Kurt Knispel's 503rd Heavy Panzer Battalion is attached to the 7th Panzer Division as flank cover for Army Detachment Kempf on the southern pincer of the offensive. His job: screen the division's exposed left flank, engage Soviet tank reserves, and prevent breakthrough. The Battle of Kursk begins on July 5th, 1943. It will become the largest tank battle in history and a turning point in the war. From his commander's cupola, Knispel watches as wave after wave of Soviet armor attacks the German positions. T-34 seconds, KV-1 heavies. The new Su-152 self-propelled guns. The fighting is apocalyptic. But this is where Kurt Knispel becomes a legend. Over 12 days of combat at Kursk, Knispel's Tiger crew destroys 27 Soviet T-34 tanks. 27, in less than 2 weeks. His reputation spreads through the battalion, then the division, then the entire army group. Stories circulate. Knispel hitting a moving T-34 at 2,000 meters. Knispel destroying 3 Soviet tanks with 3 shots in under a minute. Knispel's Tiger surviving a collision with a burning T-34 and continuing to fight. But if you met Kurt Knispel, You'd never know it. Unlike other tank aces who cultivate their image, who compete for decorations, who carefully document every kill, Knispel doesn't care about glory. When there's a dispute over who destroyed an enemy tank, he always defers to others. When younger crewmen need confidence, he credits them with kills that were probably his. His superiors recommend him for the Knight's Cross, the medal every German soldier dreams of receiving. He's turned down 4 times. Why? Because Kurt Knispel doesn't play the game. Here's what the official records don't tell you about Kurt Knispel. He wears a goatee and keeps his hair longer than regulations allow. He has a tattoo on his neck, forbidden in the Wehrmacht. He regularly appears with his uniform unbuttoned, his attitude casual. In the rigid hierarchy of the German military, this is borderline insubordination. But that's not why the Nazi authorities despise him. One day, somewhere on the Eastern Front, Kurt Knispel witnesses an Einsatzgruppen officer, one of the SS killing squad members, mistreating Soviet prisoners of war, perhaps beating them, perhaps worse. The details are lost to history. What isn't lost is what happens next. Kurt Knispel, this supposedly apolitical soldier just trying to survive the war, walks up to the SS officer and physically assaults him. In Nazi Germany, this is a capital offense. Striking an SS officer can result in immediate execution. At minimum, it means prison, disgrace, the end of a military career. For most soldiers, it would be the end of everything. But Kurt Knispel is not most soldiers. His combat record is too impressive. His unit needs him too badly. The front is too desperate. So instead of a firing squad, Knispel receives a reprimand. He's denied promotion. He's denied decorations. But he stays in his tank, because without him, more German soldiers will die. This pattern repeats throughout his service. Knispel refuses to kowtow to Nazi ideology. He treats his fellow soldiers, regardless of rank, with casual familiarity. He questions orders he considers stupid. He makes it clear that he's fighting for his crew, his comrades, maybe for Germany, but not for Hitler, not for National Socialism. In Wehrmacht slang, soldiers who constantly angled for the Knight's Cross were said to have sore throat because the medal hung from the neck. Kurt Knispel never had a sore throat. He just wanted to survive. And to help his crewmates survive. Only his kill count keeps him alive. And that kill count keeps climbing. Let's talk about what it actually means to be a tank ace. It's not like aerial combat, where a pilot might destroy an enemy in seconds and move on to the next target. Tank combat is methodical, calculated, brutal. You must, first, spot the enemy, often just a glint of metal in tree cover, a shape on a distant ridgeline, a puff of dust on the horizon. Second, identify the target. Is it a tank? What type? A T-34 requires a different approach than a KV-1 Heavy. Is it moving? At what speed? What's the range? Third, calculate the shot. At 800 meters, you must lead a moving target. At 1,500 meters, you must account for shell drop. At 2,000 meters, the margin for error is almost nothing. Fourth, fire. The 88mm gun of the Tiger I has a muzzle velocity of 810 meters per second, incredibly fast, but still not instantaneous. In the seconds between trigger pull and impact, the target might turn, might accelerate, might drop into a ditch. Fifth, observe the impact. Did you penetrate? Did you miss? Do you need a second shot? Did you need a second shot? And all of this happens while enemy shells are bracketing your position, while machine gun fire is rattling off your armor, while your own tank is moving, while smoke and dust obscure your vision. Kurt Knispel makes it look easy. Veterans who served with him describe an almost preternatural calm under fire. While other commanders are screaming orders, Knispel speaks quietly, almost conversationally. Target, 11 o'clock, T-34, 1,200 meters. Traverse left. Steady. Fire. The gun barks. 2 seconds later, the T-34 explodes. He develops a reputation for nearly impossible shots. There's a documented incident of Knispel destroying a Soviet T-34 at 3,000 meters, nearly 2 miles. At that range, the tank would have been barely visible, a tiny shape on the horizon. Most gunners wouldn't even attempt the shot. Knispel made it. His situational awareness is legendary. He seems to know where every enemy tank is, where his own tanks are positioned, where the infantry is, where danger will come from next. Subordinates describe him as having a sixth sense. More likely, it's the result of incredible focus, experience, and an intuitive grasp of battlefield geometry. And, unlike many aces who rack up kills against inferior opponents, Knispel faces increasingly sophisticated Soviet armor. The T-34-85 with its improved gun, the IS-2 heavy tank with 120 millimeters of frontal armor, the Su-152 self-propelled gun that can destroy a Tiger with one hit. By 1944, the Red Army is no longer the confused, ill-equipped force of 1,941. They have good tanks, good tactics, and overwhelming numbers. Knispel adapts and survives. His kill count passes 50, then 75, then 100. After his 100th confirmed tank kill, Kurt Knispel receives the Tank Assault Badge in gold, one of Germany's highest combat decorations. After 126 kills, he receives the German Cross in gold, making him the only non-commissioned officer to be mentioned in the Wehrmacht communiqué, the daily radio broadcast announcing military achievements. But still, no Knight's Cross. The Nazi brass hasn't forgiven his attitude, his defiance, his refusal to be a propaganda tool. Knispel doesn't care. He has his crew, his tank, and his war to fight. That's enough. March 1944. Kurt Knispel, now a Feldwebel sergeant, receives orders to transfer to the Western Front. His unit is being re-equipped with Germany's newest, most powerful tank. The Tiger II, called the Königstiger, the King Tiger. If the Tiger I was formidable, the Tiger II is terrifying. It weighs 70 tons. Its frontal armor is 180 millimeters thick, virtually impenetrable to any Allied tank gun. Its 88 millimeters, KWK 43 liters, 71 gun can penetrate any Allied tank at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters. It's the most powerful tank of World War II. It's also complex, prone to mechanical breakdown, slow, and fuel-hungry. In the right hands, it's unstoppable. In the wrong hands, it's a death trap. Kurt Knispel's hands have never been more right. June 6th, 1944. The Allies land in Normandy. Within days, Hitler orders every available reserve to Normandy to contain the beachhead. Knispel's heavy tank company moves to defend Caen, the critical road junction that British forces are desperately trying to capture. The fighting around Caen is some of the most intense of the entire war. British and Canadian forces hurl themselves at the German defenses. German Tiger IIs and Panthers fight from carefully prepared positions, destroying dozens of Sherman and Cromwell tanks. The Battle of Villers-Bocage, fought by Michael Wittmann just days before Knispel arrives, has already demonstrated what a single Tiger can do. But Knispel isn't there for glory. He's there to hold the line, to give the retreating German forces time to escape, to prevent breakthrough. Mission by mission, battle by battle, he does his job. More Sherman tanks explode under his gun. More British positions are suppressed. The kill count climbs toward 150. Then, in August 1944, everything changes. The Red Army launches Operation Bagration, the largest offensive in military history. Army Group Center, over 300,000 German soldiers, is annihilated. The Eastern Front collapses. Hitler needs every Tiger he can get. Kurt Knispel's unit is pulled from Normandy and rushed back east. By late 1944, Germany is losing. Everyone knows it. The question is no longer, can we win? But how long can we hold out? The Western Allies are approaching the Rhine. The Red Army is smashing through Poland. The Luftwaffe has been driven from the skies. German cities burn under Allied bombing. And in the chaos, Kurt Knispel fights on. His unit, now incorporated into the Feldherrnhalle Panzer Corps, participates in the desperate battles to defend Hungary and Austria. These are some of the bloodiest engagements of the entire war: savage urban fighting in Budapest, desperate defensive actions along the Grand River, hopeless counterattacks against overwhelming Soviet forces. The Red Army has learned its lessons. They don't charge blindly at German tanks anymore. They use artillery preparation. They coordinate infantry tank assaults. They bring up massed anti-tank guns. They overwhelm German positions with sheer numbers. But Knispel remains deadly. Around Mezutur, Turek St. Miklos, Segled, Kecskemét, Gyula, Nitra, names most people have never heard, he destroys Soviet tank after Soviet tank. In one engagement at Bab Castle, his Tiger II takes 24 direct hits from Soviet guns and survives. Knispel and his crew repair the damage and return to combat. His superior officer, Alfred Rubbel himself, an accomplished tank commander with 60 kills, will later describe Knispel as a man who never gave up, even in seemingly hopeless situations. By April 1945, Kurt Knispel has destroyed 168 confirmed enemy tanks. If you include the kills he credited to others, the real number might be 195 or higher. He is, by any measure, the deadliest tank commander in history. But history is about to run out. April 28th, 1945. Near the village of Wastitz, in southern Czechoslovakia today, called Vlasitis. The war has 8 days left, though no one in Kurt Knispel's unit knows that yet. Budapest has fallen. Vienna has fallen. Berlin is surrounded. But here, in the middle of nowhere, German and Soviet tank forces are still killing each other. The accounts of what happens vary. According to the diary of Hauptmann von Diest Kerber, commander of the 503rd Heavy Tank Battalion, on April 30th, 2 days after the action, he wrote, "Between Nova Ves and Vlasitic, we knocked off several Russian attacks and destroyed 10 Russian tanks. Unfortunately, we lost 2 King Tigers with their commanders, Feldwebel Knispel and Feldwebel Skoda." Another version, from a soldier in the same unit, says Knispel was wounded on April 29th in the village of Erbau today, called Verbovec. What's certain is this: Kurt Knispel's Tiger II is hit. Soviet shells, probably from a T-34, 85, or an IS-2, penetrate the tank or explode close enough to send shrapnel through the open hatches. Knispel takes shrapnel wounds to his head. It's severe. He's evacuated to a field hospital in Verbovec. There's not much the doctors can do. By 1945, German medical supplies are exhausted. Morphine is scarce. Proper surgical equipment is impossible to find. Kurt Knispel, 23 years old, the greatest tank ace in history, dies of his wounds. His body is buried in the local cemetery. A simple grave, no grand ceremony, no state funeral, no Knight's Cross placed on his coffin because he never received one. 10 days later, on May 8th, 1945, Germany surrenders. The war in Europe ends. And then Kurt Knispel disappears. Not metaphorically, literally. His grave is lost. Here's what happens. In the chaos of post-war Czechoslovakia, the new government, under Edvard Beneš, implements a brutal policy of ethnic cleansing. Nearly 3 million Sudeten Germans, Kurt Knispel's people, are forcibly expelled from Czechoslovakia. Their property is seized. Their homes are given to others. Their communities are erased. And their cemeteries? Many are destroyed. Headstones are smashed. Graves are bulldozed. The Czech government wants no reminder of the German presence that lasted centuries. Kurt Knispel's grave vanishes. No marker, no record. For nearly 70 years, history's greatest tank ace simply doesn't exist in any physical sense. His remains are somewhere under the earth of southern Czechoslovakia, but no one knows where. No family can visit. No memorial can be erected. He's a ghost, remembered by the few surviving veterans who fought with him, but with no grave, no monument, nothing to prove he was ever real. Until 2013. April 10th, 2013. Historians at the Moravian Museum in Vrbovec, Czech Republic, are conducting archaeological research behind a local church. They're looking for graves of German soldiers, casualties from the final days of the war who were buried hastily and never properly documented. They find 16 bodies. 15 are unidentified, but one has a military dog tag still attached. The name on the tag, Kurt Knispel. They identify him further through a tattoo on his neck. The same tattoo that contributed to his lack of decorations in life now helps confirm his identity in death. After 68 years, Kurt Knispel has been found. Museum spokesperson Eva Pankova announces, he was identified by the military tattoo on his neck. The discovery makes international news. Military historians are stunned. The body of history's highest-scoring tank ace, a man thought lost forever, has been recovered. On November 12, 2014, the German War Graves Commission re-enters Kurt Knispel's remains at the Central Brno Military Cemetery in Brno, Czech Republic. He's buried with 41 other German soldiers who died in Moravia and Silesia. It's a dignified ceremony, small, quiet, attended by a handful of historians and veterans. Finally, 70 years after his death, Kurt Knispel has a marked grave. So who was Kurt Knispel? Why does his story matter? In one sense, he's a statistical anomaly, a man who achieved a combat record that will likely never be equaled, 168 confirmed tank kills, possibly 195. He destroyed more enemy armor than Michael Wittmann, more than Otto Carius, more than Ernst Bachmann, more than any Allied or Soviet tank commander. He could hit targets other gunners couldn't see. He survived battles that killed most of his comrades. For 2.5 years, from 1,943 to 1,945, he was the most dangerous man in a tank on planet Earth. But the statistics don't capture the men. Kurt Knispel was an ordinary person thrust into extraordinary circumstances. He didn't want to be a hero. He didn't want glory or fame. He just wanted to do his job, protect his crew, and survive long enough to go home. He had the courage to stand up to Nazi officers when he saw them committing atrocities, even knowing it could cost him his life. He deferred credit to others when he could have hoarded it. He refused to play the propaganda game that might have brought him safety in a rear area position. In the rigid, ideological, brutal machinery of Nazi Germany, Kurt Knispel remained, in some essential way, human. And that's perhaps his truest victory. Not the 168 tanks. Not the German Cross in gold. Not even his survival through 4 years of the most savage fighting in human history. But the fact that he retained his moral compass in a war designed to destroy all morality. Of course, we must also acknowledge the complexity. Kurt Knispel fought for Nazi Germany. The regime he served, whatever his personal disagreements with it, committed unspeakable atrocities. The invasion of the Soviet Union he participated in was a war of annihilation, not just military conquest, but deliberate mass murder. Millions died. Entire populations were enslaved or exterminated. Knispel didn't choose the war. He didn't design the Holocaust. He arguably tried, in his small way, to resist the worst excesses he witnessed, but he was still part of the machine. There's no escaping that moral reality. What we can say is this. In a war filled with ideologues and fanatics, Kurt Knispel appears to have been something rarer, A man who fought for survival, for his comrades, for technical excellence, but not for ideology. A man who killed with extraordinary skill, but who also showed mercy when he could. A soldier who excelled at his terrible job, but who never lost himself in it. Today, Kurt Knispel rests in the Central Brno Military Cemetery. His headstone is simple, marked with his rank, his name, and his dates. 1921 to 1945. 23 years old. An entire lifetime compressed into 2 decades. The video game World of Tanks names an award after him, the Knispel Medal, given for gunnery excellence. Military historians continue to debate the exact number of his kills, the circumstances of his death, the reasons he was denied the Knight's Cross. Documentaries tell his story. Articles analyze his tactics. His name lives on in the niche community of World War II armor enthusiasts. But for most of the world, Kurt Knispel remains what he was for 70 years after his death. A ghost. A name in the records. A footnote in the history of the greatest conflict humanity has ever waged. Perhaps that's fitting. He never wanted fame. He never wanted to be remembered. He just wanted to survive. He didn't. Very few did. In the end, Kurt Knispel's story is a reminder of war's complexity. He was history's deadliest tank commander, and also a man who stood up for Soviet prisoners at risk to his own life. He fought for one of history's most evil regimes, and also refused to embrace its ideology. He destroyed 168 tanks and killed who knows how many enemy soldiers, and also gave credit to others when he could have kept it for himself. He was, in other words, human. Flawed, complicated, contradictory, impossible to reduce to simple judgments. And for 70 years, he vanished. Now, finally, he's been found. Kurt Knispel died on April 28, 1945, just 10 days before the end of World War II in Europe. His remains were lost for 68 years until their discovery in 2013. He was reburied with full military honors at the Central Brno Military Cemetery in Brno, Czech Republic on November 12, 2014. With 168 confirmed tank kills and possibly as many as 195, he remains the highest-scoring tank ace in military history.